And there's been some really bad philosophy and bad thinking recently. You can call it scientism, where people say science is the only way to get to truth. And it's not.
Mm.
It just isn't. There are other ways that work also.
Science is the only way to get at the truth. What do you think about that statement? Is it true or does it have some flaws with it? Well, one major flaw with that statement is it's not a scientific statement. There is no objective scientific way in which you can measure whether or not that statement is true. Let me give you a statement that is scientifically verifiable. You should subscribe to this channel because it really helps. Rosalind Picard is going to walk us through how the scientific process and scientism, while great in some ways and beautiful and helpful for discovering how the universe works, doesn't always help us find objective truth. That sometimes objective truth is actually rooted in something even deeper that science can't measure. And in fact, scientific atheists like Richard Dawkins have hinted at this for many years, actually. Dawkins has said himself that if atheism is true, we would expect to find a universe that has nothing but blind, pitiless indifference, that some people would get lucky and others wouldn't. Some would suffer and some would not. And you couldn't say whether that's right or wrong, it just is. Yet we all kind of recoil at that idea. We know that there's something wrong about that. If you saw an adult hurting a child, you would know that that is wrong. We all would. We would not just sit back and say, well, as Dawkins theorized, that is right in line with what we would expect. It is neither right nor wrong. It just is. That's ridiculous. We would all go, that adult is hurting that child. It needs to stop. That's wrong. And in fact, that is what we do. That's how the world operates. So what is that truth that we appeal to that maybe cannot be scientifically verified when we say that somebody being hurt by another person is wrong? Well, Professor Picard has some answers for us in this regard as to what can be objectively true and where scientism fails.
You said scientists too often assume that nothing exists beyond what can be currently measured.
Yeah, materialism
materialism
and
right?
scientism. Yeah.
So in some sense, this assumption enables the near-term scientific method, assuming that we can uncover the mysteries of this world by the mechanisms of measurement that we currently have. But we easily forget that we've made this assumption. Right? So what do you think we miss out on by making that assumption? That
It's fine to limit the scientific method to things we can measure and reason about and reproduce. That's fine. I think we have to recognize that sometimes we scientists also believe in things that happen historically. You know, like I believe the Holocaust happened. I can't prove events from past history scientifically. You prove them with historical evidence, right? With the impact they had on people, with eyewitness testimony and things like that. So a good thinker recognizes that science is one of many ways to get knowledge. It's not the only way. And there's been some really bad philosophy and bad thinking recently. You can call it scientism, where people say science is the only way to get to truth. And it's not. It just isn't. There are other ways that work also, like knowledge of love with someone. You don't prove your love through science, right? So history, philosophy, love, a lot of other things in life show us that there's more ways to gain knowledge and truth, if you're willing to believe there is such a thing, and I believe there is, than science. I am a scientist, however, and in my science, I do limit my science to the things that the scientific method can do. But I recognize that it's myopic to say that that's all there is.
right, there's just like you listed, there's all the why questions, and really we know, if we're being honest with ourselves, the percent of what we really know is basically zero relative to the full mystery of the
measure theory, a set of measure zero. If I have a finite amount of knowledge, which I do.
So you said that you believe in truth. So let me ask that old question. What do you think this thing is all about? It's life on Earth?
life, the universe, and everything.
And everything. What's the
I can't
meaning?
quote Douglas Adams.
Yeah.
42. It's my favorite number. By the way, that's
40...
my street address. My husband and I guessed the exact same number for our house. We got to pick it.
Okay.
And there's a reason we picked 42. Yeah.
So is it just 42, or do you have other words that you can put around it?
Well, I think there's a grand adventure, and I think this life is a part of it. I think there's a lot more to it than meets the eye and the heart and the mind and the soul here. I think we see but through a glass dimly in this life. We see only a part of all there is to know. If people haven't read the Bible, they should, if they consider themselves educated. And you could read Proverbs and find tremendous wisdom in there that cannot be scientifically proven, but when you read it, there's something in you, like a musician knows when the instrument's played right and it's beautiful. There's something in you that comes alive and knows that there's a truth there, that it's like your strings are being plucked by the master instead of by me, right? Twang when I pluck it, but probably when you play, it sounds spectacular, right? And when you encounter those truths, there's something in you that sings and knows that there is more than what I can prove mathematically or program a computer to do. Don't get me wrong, the math is gorgeous. The computer programming can be brilliant. It's inspiring, right? We want to do more. None of this squashes my desire to do science or to get knowledge through science. I'm not dissing the science at all. I grow even more in awe of what the science can do because I'm more in awe of all there is we don't know. And really at the heart of science, you have to have a belief that there's truth, that there's something greater to be discovered. And some scientists may not want to use the faith word, but it's faith that drives us to do science. It's faith that there is truth, that there's something to know that we don't know, that it's worth knowing, that it's worth working hard, and that there is meaning, that there is such a thing as meaning, which, by the way, science can't prove either. We have to kind of start with some assumptions that there's things like truth and meaning. And these are really questions philosophers own, right? This is their space of philosophers and theologians at some level. So these are things science, when people claim that science will tell you all truth, there's a name for that. It's its own kind of faith. It's scientism. And it's very myopic.
In this next clip, we see how Professor Picard became a Christian after realizing that science doesn't have a monopoly on truth claims.
My views at the time were that Christians, and actually all religions I was pretty antagonistic toward, were people who really didn't know their science or maybe they needed a crutch or something. I really didn't think they were that smart. Then I started to realize that many of such people were super smart, and they challenged me to read the best-selling book of all time, which is probably still the Bible, and the Hebrew and Old Testament and Christian New Testament. And as I was reading that to against my desires, I started to change my mind about some things. And then I thought, oh gosh, okay, if this book is influencing me to change my mind toward Christianity or toward belief in God, maybe I should study other world religions. So I started to do that. And as I started learning more and more about different world religions, meeting people from those religions and going to temples and mosques and others, I started to realize that not only did I have a lot to learn, but I was on a journey that was starting to make me not only believe in God even more, but as I got dragged off to some Christian churches, which I resisted in the beginning, and found somewhere I could ask questions, very important, I started to realize that the religion was not at all what I thought it was, and that there were some really interesting and very attractive elements that were very historically verified also, not at all what I expected. And as I learned about that, I changed my viewpoint gradually from an atheist to an agnostic to a theist to somebody who actually believed that the historical Jesus and the New Testaments, what's written about him, was true. It sounds a little wacky to those who may not come from that background. It was not an easy process. But as I did that, and then I was challenged to not only believe this, but to put it to practice, that's where things started to really make a difference in my life. And actually, the real reason I'm here right now, spending time talking about something like this, as opposed to just my research, is because it has made a huge difference in my life. And part of the Christian faith is that there's a gift for everybody in the world, whether you're raised Christian or Hindu or Muslim or Buddhist or atheist or any of a long list of backgrounds. There's a gift for everybody there. And when I accepted that gift, it made a huge difference in my life for the better, big improvement. So I didn't realize it needed so much improving at the time. Those around me saw the difference. And today it is my source of strength, an amazing source of peace and joy and wisdom.
What I really love about hearing about Professor Picard's journey to becoming a Christian is that it was absolutely a process. And I think that's how it is or was for many of us who have come to believe the Christian faith. It doesn't always just happen. It's sometimes a very long process. When Professor Rosalind Picard started to realize that science doesn't have a monopoly on truth and that there are other ways of finding it, she also realized that the Bible is a profound source of things that are objectively true, even if they're not always scientifically measurable. However, and this is just me talking, not Professor Picard, when you do look at things you can objectively measure in regards to determining whether or not books from antiquity give us an accurate view of the past, we find that the four Gospels specifically are actually amazing sources. In fact, the four Gospels do so well in objective measures that we look at when determining whether books of antiquity are accurate, that they really are the standard by which all other books are compared to, and no other books from antiquity actually supersede it in their qualifications. That seems like something Professor Picard realized on her journey. If you want to know why so many intellectuals lately are actually proclaiming a belief in God, check out this video. And if you want to know why the four Gospels are trustworthy accounts of what actually happened in history, check out this video.